Nuclear weapons, the so-called area weapons, have changed the face of the battlefield. Under the threat of an A-bomb fireball, the concentration of large numbers of troops in any one place is a thing of the past. Today, the answer is small, fast-moving combat units scattered 10, 25, or even 50 miles apart. The gaps between these units pose supply and communications problems. Ground vehicles eventually encounter the obstacles common to battlefields: rivers with no bridges, swamps with no roads, lakes with no boats, ridges with no passes. Only aircraft can provide vital links between the fighting units and send soldiers and their equipment up and over barriers that have halted armies since time began. Here is the answer to the need for better mobility. A new kind of aviation that has steadily come into its own in recent years. It is a heavy-duty, short-range type of flying to which jets and Mach numbers remain as remote as Mars. It is Army aviation. Low-altitude light planes and helicopters of Army aviation provide a startling contrast in an age of supersonic aircraft. Yet, as one Army aviator put it the other day, we can't all go to the moon. Some of us must stay behind and fly low and slow. Low, yes, but slow only by contrast with the jets and missiles. Low and fast would be a better phrase. For the Army's new mode of moving about is nimble indeed when compared with trucks, jeeps, artillery convoys, and marching troops. Having gotten about all it can out of wheels and tracks, the Army has had to get up off the ground to obtain the mobility it needs to cope with the new look of the modern battlefield. The result is that battle objectives are reached in minutes instead of hours, and without a fight en route. Helicopters can carry their own firepower too, like this H-34 into which rockets are loaded. Army helicopters form the so-called Sky Cavalry and are intended to provide rear area security and light reconnaissance combat. These scenes are from a successful field trial held at Fort Benning, Georgia, and utilizing the big Sikorsky H-37 Mojave helicopter. The trial called for transportation of an infantry company by air into a combat area, a medical evacuation, and artillery pickup. A grueling week of maneuvers under tactical conditions. The trial was designed to check the 4th Transportation Company's ability to move its aircraft, supplies, maintenance shops, and personnel into the field and operate as a tactical transportation company. The H-37s prepare to pick up 105mm howitzers and gun crews. The twin-engine H-37, the free world's largest and fastest production helicopter, can carry 36 fully equipped troops with an alternate cargo capacity of 1,325 cubic feet. H-37 picks up a 105mm howitzer and heads for the combat area. Meanwhile, Air Force F-100 Super Sabres soften up the enemy. First, they drop 500-pound bombs. Then they unleash a barrage of 2.3-inch rockets. finally, they unload fiery napalm bombs. The Army takes over again. H-34 Choctaws carry out further softening up with rockets and machine guns. More H-34s land Pathfinder troops. Pilots of the H-37s, which will appear in a matter of minutes, will follow landing directions of the Pathfinders. Still preparing the way for the main assault, more H-34s fly in at low altitude to hit the enemy again with rocket and machine gun fire. Then comes the main assault, troops and weapons, all flown swiftly into position by helicopters, on the theory that getting there first is just as vital as getting there with the most. In combat, Army aircraft must operate from unprepared terrain. The less landing space required, the better, which makes vertical lift machines the ideal Army air vehicle. Thus far, the helicopter alone has met the vertical lift requirements on an operational basis. The big copters do double duty as prisoners and casualties are carried quickly to rear areas. Army aviation is integrated with the troops in the field. In their support of ground operations, Army aircraft carry out 6 major functions in the combat zone: observation, airlift for troops, rapid movement of supplies, air mobility for land reconnaissance, command liaison and communication and casualty evacuation. A quick conference between air and ground commanders, and the assault continues with more airlift, more troops, and more weapons. All flown in at treetop levels, free of roads, passes, and bridges, and over lakes, rivers, or swamps. Thus does the Army get up off the ground to obtain the mobility it needs to cope with the new look of the modern battlefield. Army aviation as known today was set up on June 6, 1942, when light aircraft became an organic part of the ground combat forces. After World War II, Army aviation continued to grow. The helicopter brought a new dimension, direct lift to combat units. The result, improved reconnaissance and transportation, was dramatically shown in Korea, where rotary wing aircraft came into their own as a battlefield necessity. Helicopters, flying as aerial ambulances, saved thousands of lives there. jeeps roll from an H-37 ready for battle. Casualties are loaded into an H-37 for transportation to a rear area. A French general commenting on the use of helicopters in North Africa said, "We shall never be able to say how many engagements have been turned to our advantage by helicopter-carried reinforcements, nor how many troops in a bad spot have been properly supplied, nor how many wounded, enemy or friend, have been saved thanks to the speed with which they were evacuated." For this exercise, the 4th Transportation Corps, under command of Major Keith Bauer, received a superior score and was pronounced ready for action. You have seen here but a glimpse of tactical air mobility, which has been called the Army's one major breakthrough in mobility since World War II. Exercises such as this make it clear that Army aviation's main requirement is to pursue aviation's many possibilities with continued energy and imagination.